similar styles. You got one younger, one older. You got one calling the other one out. And he just won't mind. He doesn't mind seeing the fight, and I don't mind seeing the fight either. Either at 147 or 54, I don't mind seeing that fight either.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, 2-division world champion, Hall of Fame superstar, retired boxer, now colorful analyst for ESPN and Top Rank, and he's also an analyst on ProBox. Shouts out to ProBox. And this is Timothy Desert Storm Bradley. And he's talking about a friend of his in Terence Bud Crawford facing off against what I refer to as the Phenom, Jerron Boots Ennis. So you got the pound-for-pound king and the Phenom. And Timothy Bradley, I have to correct him. Many people have sent this to me now. And they said, I'm wrong, or they stated that, can I address what Timothy Bradley stated? Which is, Timothy Bradley states that Terence Crawford vacated his IBF International Boxing Federation title to avoid a fight with Jerron Boots Ennis and moved up in weight. That's completely incorrect. Okay? And he's essentially saying that Terence Crawford is avoiding a fight with Jerron Boots Ennis. But let's just listen to what he had to say, shall we?
Because they're similar in a lot of ways. And let's talk about. Do you still want to see the fight of these guys get in the ring? Yeah, why not? Why not get it on? But let's talk about how he got his belt. Let's talk about that.
Now, what you're going to hear is Tim Bradley state. Now, you heard what he said. He said, let's talk about how Jerron Boots Ennis, the Phenom, who just stopped David Avanesian in the 5th round of their fight this past Saturday, in his debut for Matchroom and Matchroom CEO promoter Eddie Hearn in DAZN, and a homecoming fight, right, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the Wells Fargo Arena where the 76ers play. He defended his IBF title, and now he's going to say, let's talk about how Jerron Boots Ennis received the IBF title, right? So let's listen to this, and then we're going to react to it.
How did he get his belt? Well, Terence Crawford was the undisputed champion, right?
Right.
But Crawford didn't want to, I guess they didn't want to negotiate with Boots.
Now let's stop right there. He said Crawford didn't want to negotiate with Jerron Boots Ennis. That's not true, Tim. And Tim is my guy. He knows this. That's not true. You are forgetting that Terence Crawford was contractually obligated to fulfill a rematch with Errol Spence, and Terence Crawford was waiting for the details for the rematch with Errol Spence. He was not in a position to face off against Jerron Boots Ennis or negotiate with Jerron Boots Ennis because he was contractually obligated to rematch Errol Spence, who immediately, upon losing and being stopped by Terence Crawford in the 9th round, petitioned to have the rematch. So Terence Crawford, hands were tied. That's number one. Number two, Errol Spence held the IBF title since 2017, for 6 years. He had one mandatory defense the entire time, which was against Carlos Ocampo. Okay? He defended against his mandatory one time in 6 years. Jerron Boots Ennis chose to go the route of the IBF. He could have went the route of the WBO and became Terence Crawford mandatory. They went the route of the IBF to become the IBF mandatory for Errol Spence. He was Errol Spence's mandatory for over a year, and Errol Spence didn't defend it. Terence Crawford inherited Jerron Boots Ennis as his mandatory challenger after stopping and beating Errol Spence. Okay? And just 2 months after beating Errol Spence, the IBF gave him an ultimatum, which they knew he could not fulfill, and they stripped him of the IBF title. Okay? He did not vacate it, and he did not drop the belt. He was stripped after only 2 months. Errol Spence held the belt for 6 years with one title defense against a mandatory, which was Carlos Ocampo. Terence Crawford held the belt for 2 months and was stripped. That's the difference, Tim. Let's keep listening.
Boots has been after Crawford for some time now. He wants all.
That is true. But his promoter and the network were not willing to make the fight. I know that personally. Jerron Boots Ennis wants to fight. His father, trainer, manager, Bolte Ennis wants to fight. But the networks and the promoter did not. That's why they didn't pursue it. And hence the reason why he was advised to go the IBF route. Errol Spence was on the quote-unquote same side of the street with more belts and a bigger name.
That smoke, man, at the end of the day. You know, I don't understand how let me just say this. I don't understand how we're saying we want Benavidez and we want Canelo Alvarez. We want Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. Well, Crawford was at 147 at one point. Now he's at 54. However, why can't we get a Crawford and Boots Ennis? You know, when Crawford was undisputed champion, he could have fought against Boots Ennis then. You know.
No, he could not. He was only undisputed for 2 months, Tim. And then he was stripped. He was contractually obligated to fulfill a rematch that Errol Spence petitioned to have. He could not.
To me, it seems to me that Crawford is being just like Spence was to him. You know?
That's incorrect. I know this personally because I was the one in between that attempted to make the fight. Steven Espinosa of Showtime President of Sports, he stated that he was not willing to step on the toes of premier boxing champion founder advisor Al Heyman, the PBC, and Errol Spence, who was trying to make a fight with Terence Crawford. And so because they couldn't come to an agreement, he was not going to be the one to step on Errol Spence and Al Heyman's toes and make a fight. Because remember, Boots Ennis was signed to Showtime, not to the PBC. And Cameron Duncan, the late Cameron Duncan. Okay? He was signed to Showtime and Cameron Duncan. Steven Espinosa said they had no dates to make a fight with Terence Crawford. And they were focusing on a fight with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Go look at the interview on Aki TV where Skip, shouts out to Skip, he interviewed Steven Espinosa, and Steven Espinosa admitted this. I wasn't going to step on their toes. So he could not fight him then. And then once he signed the contract to fight Errol Spence, he was contractually obligated to rematch Errol Spence. So, Tim, you're wrong there.
When Crawford moved up to 147, Spence said, get a belt. Crawford got a belt. He's like, okay, what's the excuse now? You know, what you need me to do? Well, you ain't fought anybody.
That's completely entirely two different situations. That was Terence Crawford's first fight at 147 pounds after he beat Jeff Horn and became the WBO champion. This is not Jerron Boots Ennis' first fight at welterweight, number one. Number two, they had an opportunity to make the fight, and they didn't want to make the fight. That being Espinosa and Cameron Duncan, okay? That's number two. And number three, Terence Crawford was only the champion, undisputed champion for 2 months. Errol Spence was the IBF champion for 6 years. It's a completely different scenario. And Errol Spence couldn't get the other champions to unify, particularly Keith Thurman.
And the same excuses coming from the Crawford team, you know, the way he did it with Spence. The same thing Spence did to him at the end of the day.
Not the same
Is he
thing.
ready for a Crawford? Boots Ennis? Yes, he's ready right now.
Is he ready for Terence Crawford? I would say yes, like Timothy Bradley. Yes, he has all the tools, all the skills, all the makeup, the power, the hand speed, the ring IQ, the commitment to the sport. Yes, I agree. He is ready.
For Terence Crawford. I'm telling you, okay? Because he's athletic, he's just as long and big. He can switch southpaw. He can do everything that Terence Crawford can do. But the only thing that I see that's different is the mentality as far as how to control the fight. Crawford's the best at that and understanding how to control the fight. However, Boots Ennis, he does it a lot quicker. He makes his moves a lot faster than Crawford. He's a little bit more.
I said this a couple of days ago when I told you guys Jerron Boots Ennis has a lot more to prove. He fights at a much faster pace. Terence Crawford, I gave you the comparisons like Floyd Mayweather when he was Pretty Boy Floyd. He was aggressive. He was, far more energetic and far more active in the ring compared to Money Mayweather. Money Mayweather was way more accomplished. He was way more seasoned, and he learned to pace himself. That's the difference between Boots and Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 37 years of age, 3-division champion, 2-division undisputed champion. He understands a lot more that I can walk down, the two bulls on the hill. Let's walk down and get some of them cows. The son said, let's run down there and get one of them cows. The father said, no, let's walk down and get them all. Right? That's the difference.
Would say he takes more risks than Crawford. He can punch just as hard as Crawford.
He has to, because he has a lot more to prove than Terence Crawford.
He wants to fight Terence Crawford, put him in the ring with Crawford. If we want Benavidez to fight against freaking Canelo Alvarez, it should be the same thing should apply to Terence Crawford.
It's not the same thing. Benavidez has been the mandatory challenger for Canelo Alvarez for over a year. He's been the WBC mandatory challenger for Canelo Alvarez for over a year. He held the WBC title. Terence Crawford never held the IBF title at 147 until he beat Errol Spence in July, and then he was stripped of the belt in September. So there's a completely different scenario, a completely different situation, and Terence Crawford had a contract to fulfill with Errol Spence, and eventually Errol Spence stated that he was not going to take the Terence Crawford fight and hold Terence Crawford up. Terence Crawford was already stripped with the IBF and already announced that he was moving to 54. Keep in mind, the rematch with Errol Spence was supposed to be at 154. So when Tim is saying that he vacated the belt and moved up in weight, it's not true. He was stripped of the belt and he was already moving to 154 for the rematch with Errol Spence. But let's keep listening. It's completely different from David Benavidez.
Crawford should be fighting Boots Ennis. It's a guy that's calling him out. It's a guy that he let the belt go because
he did not let the belt go. He was stripped.
He was there and he didn't want to face him. So all the rules apply all the way across the board. I love Crawford. You know I do. That's my guy. However, he should fight Boots Ennis as soon as possible.
Now, he said that he let the belts go because he didn't want to face him. Tim, they was in negotiations. They could have had a fight before he fought Errol Spence. And Steven Espinosa and Cameron Duncan said no. And they didn't want to step on Al Haymon's toes and Errol Spence's toes before Errol Spence got the fight with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford said, I'm not happy with the negotiations with the PBC and Errol Spence. I would love to fight Jerron Boots Ennis. That's what he told us. Steven Espinosa said he didn't want to step on their toes. He had a conflict of interest. Period. And Terence Crawford didn't drop the belt. He was stripped of the belt. He only had it for 2 months. Completely different scenario than David Benavidez being Canelo Alvarez's mandatory for the WBC belt that he held and never lost in the ring for over a year, and then a guy that picked up the IBF belt for 2 months and was stripped. It's a completely different situation. Period. And there you have it. And that's all I got for y'all, man. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. That's all I got for y'all. I'm gone. Peace.